welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D, coming to you live to discuss the fifth episode of CBS All Access's new miniseries, The Stand. So, if you've joined me on previous reviews of The Stand, you'll know that it has been honestly overall disappointing. We have had a rather hectic presentation of the storytelling overall. We've had a lot of skipping around in time. The story began in Boulder, and then it jumped back to the start of Captain Trips, back and forth, back and forth. And it caused a lot of difficulty connecting with the characters. If you followed my previous reviews about The Stand, you may remember that during my review of episode 2, I suggested that there was a distinct possibility the show could drastically improve when it got beyond all of this time jumping that we knew was going to come to an end roughly in the middle of the season. Well, here we are in the middle of the season with the episode Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And blessedly, our time jumps are indeed behind us. And I was very pleased to see that we did get a pretty significant improvement in the product on the screen. We got a lot of Randall Flagg in this week's episode. And Skarsgård is doing a really excellent job portraying this guy who is really the embodiment of all evil in King's Stand universe, as well as branching out to other areas of King's creations, such as the Dark Tower and many other stories that he's told. But Flagg is an evil motherfucker, and Skarsgård does an excellent job portraying that. I'm going to come in just to sort of get started with a high level intro to what I thought about this week's episode. I'll go straight to where I'm going to rate it at a 6.5 out of 10, which is a really big improvement over what we've gotten, particularly the past 3 episodes that truly just performed poorly. But we got a big change now that we're done with all these time jumps, and we get to be just more a part of the story that's being told. And the experience for the viewer is a hell of a lot better in this episode than we've seen for the rest of the season. Max Rottenstein, hail to you, sir. Glad to see that you popped in. Very, very glad to have you. And the improvements to the story and the viewer's experience were really, really dramatic compared to what we've had in past episodes. At a high level, we got to see the spies in Vegas, and it was a very good part of the book's tale. There's still some changes to the story overall, which is not unexpected in any kind of adaptation for television, particularly from a massive novel like The Stand. I was very impressed with the performance of the actor playing Dana Jurgens in the episode, who is really kind of a badass woman who is there in Vegas trying to get some information on what's going on and runs into some trouble in the process of that. We got to see a lot more of Lloyd Heinried in tonight's episode, as well as Julie Lawler, who, of course, appeared with Tom and Nick a couple episodes ago. Vegas in this vision of The Stand is a bit different than the Vegas of the book. They placed a lot of emphasis on just it being a hedonistic culture with gladiator battles, a lot of sex, drugs, and rock and roll. If I remember correctly from the book, drugs were a pretty big no-no in Flagg's Vegas. But I don't object to that change here, although I do think that the producers wanted to portray this place as something of a lawless, uh, just place where you can experience all your baser instincts, and that's truly that's not 100% in line with how the novel portrayed Flag's Vegas. But again, I didn't mind that particular change, and it worked with the way that they presented it. Uh, Dana was again kind of the main focus of tonight's episode, although we did get a significant plot related to Franny's suspicion of Harold being up to something, and Larry sneaking into his house to try to figure out just what was going on. Despite having that bit in Vegas, we definitely had really the main focus being in Vegas. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Max, that is not only my memory of the '94 miniseries, but the book as well. And so there was definitely some drug use, so they made that change. But again, that's not one that I minded. I do expect that there's gonna be adjustments and changes in any various adaptation. So it worked for me. The Vegas storyline, we definitely got to see a fair bit of Tom Cullen, and he ended up being sort of on general custodial duty, particularly as it related to the gladiator matches where people were fighting to the death to win fabulous prizes. I believe that was a unique concept that they added here. And again, it was intended to show Vegas as really, I mean, Sodom and Gomorrah and the heart of hedonism. And it's very intentional to make the viewer see it as not particularly the greatest place to be. So it's a change that I didn't mind. Dana's story was mostly intact from the novel in what we saw in today's episode. And there were a couple of adjustments, though. The biggest one that they changed from the novel versus the TV series tonight is Dana had armed herself with her own special knife that was attached to her wrist in the novel. But in the show that we saw tonight, she just found a weapon of opportunity in a pair of, I don't know if they were styling scissors, but it was a really nasty, dangerous pair of scissors that she used to attempt to kill Flag, which of course didn't work. The way that they had it play out in the show tonight, it wasn't a change that I necessarily object to, but certainly was a difference in what we saw. No trash can man tonight. We did not get to see Ezra Miller pop in. The only major characters that we really saw were Lloyd and Dana, Tom, and Julie in Vegas outside of Flag. So when Dana attempted to kill Flag in the show tonight, well, we know the trash can man's coming. He's played by Ezra Miller. Yes, I was expecting the change to the banana NRAM exactly, because in the book, Dana had armed herself with a knife that was basically on a spring clip attached to her wrist, and Flag used his magic to turn it into a banana. But the show went ahead and let her stab him with it, and he just shrugged it off like it was nothing. So it's the same general concept of showing the guy being magical and powerful and what have you. But I was disappointed in that particular change, both that it wasn't a planned, how she always intended to do if she got the opportunity, and the fact that Flag didn't just stop her from doing it and make her feel foolish. In the novel, after that happened, Dana killed herself by beating her head against the window and ultimately killing herself on the cracked window. And in the show, she did it with the shattered end of a bottle. So we did still get the Dana sacrificing herself to prevent Flag from torturing her and giving up the information on who the third spy was in the person of Tom. And we didn't get to see Judge Ferris. And I'm wondering if that one appearance from the lady who plays Judge Ferris is all we're going to get, because she wasn't in the episode at all tonight. So they may be just kind of brushing her aside. Dana did try to warn Tom to get out of there by passing him a note that said run, but of course Tom can't read, so he just looked at it and said MOON, because that's Tom Cullen for you. So Tom is going to, I'm assuming his story is going to follow what we saw in the book, and he's going to leave on his own before too long. It remains to be seen. Of course, we've got 4 episodes left to go. But overall, Dana's story was good and solid, relatively true to the book. And Ram, I was also very disappointed that we didn't get to see the scissors get turned into the banana like they did. Yeah, CGI could have used on Flag went to Discovery. Yeah. I don't know. They didn't seem to have much of a budget on Discovery either. Yeah, MOO is run. Exactly, NRAM. It was, I see why they made the change on how Dana killed herself, because the way that she took her own life in the book was pretty gruesome. And I think CBS intentionally made a decision not to be quite so gory in how she died. And I can live with that. You know, that's a minor quibble, honestly. Yeah, the eyes were cool. I really liked that. They did a shot in the scene with Dana and Flag where his eyes turned into like an image of just the deep universe. And that actually looked cool as hell. And I liked that quite a bit. It was an interesting touch that really made you question just how powerful is this guy. I did like that quite a bit. My other complaint, honestly, about changes that were made in Vegas center around Lloyd Heinried, because Lloyd in the book changed dramatically when Flag gave him the talisman. He became smarter. He became far more competent and an effective administrator. And the Lloyd that we saw in the show tonight was still this really crazy, out there kind of guy. And I mean, it's certainly an intentional choice to make him rather outrageous. And he almost reminded me more of what I envisioned the Trash Can Man being than Lloyd. So that was, again, it was a change made for the series. And for me, it wasn't Lloyd. I imagine people who are more new to the show are probably going to be okay with it. But for a fan of the book, those changes to Lloyd were a little rough. I mean, it worked and everything. It's just not the Lloyd that I was expecting. And I suppose it remains to be seen how that finishes to play out. But he doesn't seem to have had the... yes, Lloyd being transformative would require good writing. That's a fair observation, Max. I will give you that. And we've certainly seen with the way that they jumped around in time so much during the first 4 episodes that the writers on this particular show are not particularly highly talented. But I mean, it's almost like they didn't read who Lloyd was to me. And yeah, this Lloyd I'm not a fan of. Again, I see, I think, the purposes that they had behind it, because he fits in with the outrageous, hedonistic Vegas that they've presented to us. but it's not the Lloyd that we knew. The thing about Lloyd in the book, particularly towards the end, is Lloyd also became a sympathetic character. He was not an evil or crazy son of a bitch in the book, particularly in the latter half. He knew that Flag was going down, that Flag was not good for Vegas, but he remained loyal to him because of all the things that Flag did that made Lloyd a better person. I know that sounds a little weird when we're talking about the devil incarnate and Flag, but Lloyd grew and developed and, again, was this effective, cold, calculating administrator, which the Lloyd that we saw in the show tonight was anything but. I get why they did it. I think it was a bad choice. The Boulder storyline that we got in tonight's episode was relating around the further development of Harold's plan to attack and destroy and blow up the committee. We went into Larry invading his house. I am becoming more enamored with this version of Larry as compared to the novel. We lost some of the heart that was Larry with the backstory that they messed around with, but the Larry that I've seen in Boulder has been a guy that I liked, and I think that the actor is doing a pretty good job with what he was given. What they did to his backstory, there was not a hell of a lot that this guy could have done with it, but the Boulder on parts of his story, I think he does a pretty good job. And among the Boulder crew, Larry is the one that I've developed in this telling of the story the strongest attachment to. So, I mean, kudos to him there, absolutely. Franny continues to be just poorly acted, honestly. And I don't know why the actress portraying Franny is so gosh darn passive. Or one of the commenters on this video series that I've been doing refers to her as Sleepy Franny. And I don't disagree with that characterization. She just doesn't seem to have much energy. And I can't bring myself to connect with this actress for one reason or another. She's just when she's not boring, she's even sort of unattractive and off-putting, which is tough because that's not the Franny that we got from the novel either. Marsden continues to do a passable job playing Stu. And again, the Boulder storyline that we got was overall okay. We were also shown Mother Abigail's abandonment of Boulder when in the book she goes out to wander in the wilderness for 40 days and 40 nights. And it looks like they are adapting that part of Mother Abigail's story intact. And Whoopi was decent tonight. Say what you will about her as a person, she is a talented actor, and she's doing fine with Mother Abigail as a whole, the character that they've presented. I don't like some of the changes they've done to her backstory, but Whoopi's acting the part just fine. And the biggest issue with Mother Abigail is that they're not giving us a good reason to care about her like we experienced in the 94 miniseries and certainly in the book that itself. And yes, Molly Ringwald was outstanding as Franny in 94. And it's a shame that they did not get as talented an actor to take the role this time around. But yeah, 6.5 out of 10 for this 5th episode of The Stand. And I am finally looking forward to next week's episode, which is not something that I've been able to say the past couple of weeks. If it continues on the course that we saw tonight, it'll certainly be worth your time to finish out the series. Unfortunately, I think that there's probably been a loss of a lot of viewers because of that episode 2 to 4 stretch that just wasn't very good. which is too bad because this thing has got a new ending from Stephen King coming that I am excited to see. Overall, 6.5 out of 10. I am absolutely much more excited about seeing next week's episode than I was going into this week's. All right, that is it for the evening. Do please remember to hit that like button if you've made it this far. Comment down on the video below. And if you're just encountering the channel for the first time, I certainly do hope that I've earned your subscription this evening, and we'll catch you on the next video.